Hi guys, welcome to the video. I hope you're all doing well. First of all, before we get into it at all, many thanks for all you who subscribed to the channel. We've just hit a milestone of just over 3,000 subscribers now, so which is very humbling for an old man that messes around with foam and aeroplanes. So, as a way of sort of a thank you, what I thought I'd do is bring this updated version of the Windows controller software. There's been a few little issues reported to me by some users, and I've also identified a few things as well. I've done a bit of a code tidy up as well, so hopefully you find it's useful to you. Now, if you stick around to the end of the video, what I'm going to do is talk about some updates I made to the foam cutter itself. Nothing major, just a few refinements really. Things I found when I've been using it that have caused me a little bit of irritations, and so we'll talk about that. So you might have noticed I've updated the website quite a bit as well. So I'll talk about what's gone on there and the reasons for doing some of that. And then while we've been in this lockdown in the UK, which was just gradually coming out and just started flying again, which is nice, I decided to have a look at Fusion 360 to see if we could get it to generate any 4-axis G code. Now I have managed to do it, but it's a little bit of a hack. So basically it's only for parallel cuts. So I'm actually going to try it to make a simple fuselage with it for like a Piper Cub type aeroplane. So nothing too fancy. I'm still testing it and developing it, so we'll probably have a video at the end, but I'll talk a little bit more about it towards the end of the video. So without further ado, what we'll do is we'll get on and have a look at this update and what's entailed with it, and hopefully you should find it of some benefit to you. So what we'll do, we'll have a look at the update now, guys. So the first thing we'll do, I'll bring up the old one and show you what's a couple of little issues were. So one of the problems we had with it was that when you loaded a file in, so what I'll do, I've got the Arduino here plugged in. So it works just the same as if it's connected to the foam cutter, but it's not actually driving any motors. So if we just load a file in, just bring the old plug wire up. So what would happen is when you start the cut, let's connect. There we are, so we're connected there. Just zero everything out here. What would happen, you'd start the cut and everything would go okay, and then what you find, when you come round towards the back section here, the code would finish, so it would get to the end of the code, but the red line showing you the cut wouldn't actually finish. It stopped somewhere down here. And when I started looking into it, I found it was to do with the way this buffering was working. So if we look on the settings, we have some settings for Qmax and receive buffer. And when I looked into the code, it was originally designed for the Arduino Uno. So it didn't really have any effect on the Mega. So that's been sorted out. So, and if we go on and have a look at the jogging section. Sometimes what would happen, and I've had quite a few users comment on this, when you press an up arrow key or a plus or a minus to go, say, you've got the distance set to 10 millimeters, it would go 20 or 30. And I've spoke about this before in some of the videos, that it's to do with the mouse clicks. So what we've done on that is actually hopefully fix that. If you hold the mouse down long enough, it will do more, but it's not so sensitive now. So what we'll do, we'll disconnect and we'll load up the new version. Now you can have the old and new version loaded together. So when you download the new version, it will install alongside. It's got a different naming structure, so it shouldn't interfere. So it's probably a good idea as well, just to keep the two together. You know, in case you do find it. I mean, I've done quite a lot of testing with it, and I'll put some video up to show you it working. But there's nothing like user testing to fully test things. So what we'll do is we'll connect. So there we're connected there. Now, if we go onto the settings tab, if we look at the settings tab, I've removed those settings now. The settings for the Mega and the MKS board are now coded into the software. The settings are fixed anyway on the Arduino Mega and the MKS board, so you can't go in and change them anyway. I wasn't really sure why these are in here in the first place, to be honest. So what happens now, when we open the file, so let's go and open that. So open that file now, you will find it goes to the end. But what you also find as well now, so if we just go to 10, when you actually jog the axis, so if we go, so if we just go up 10, the actual red line will show the jogging movements as well. Now, I've sort of pondered over this section a bit, and to make the coding cleaner, it's easier to do it like this than try and just do it for the actual cut. It gets a bit complicated why, and I'm not going to bore you with the details. But sometimes what you might need to do, if you've been jogging a lot, so if you've, say, gone, so if we go an X plus as well to bring it forward. So, you know, what you might find is when you actually run the job, it all gets out of sync. So the best thing to do is two things you can do. You can either, I've got this button now called display reset. So if you just press display reset, it sets it back there, and when you're ready to start your run. So so potentially we've moved our axes to where we want to. I mean, this is a bit nonsense here at the moment. So let's just go up on the U10. Right. So this is potentially where we've got our foam sitting. So what we do now is 0 axis. And now if we do a display reset and then run the code, it should start and run okay. So if I just set it going here, you can see now it's going to come up and it's going to work properly. So while that's going, I'll just show you some of the other changes. And what you'll also notice is this Q section here, this will actually go down properly as well. So what happens is it fills the queue up in the Arduino Mega or the MKS, and then as it gets towards the end of the job, the queue will gradually start to empty. So you will see that come down, and that will come down as the code finishes. So go onto the settings page, and the other thing you may have noticed as well, I've changed this to a button now. This voltage setting, all it does, it's for scaling the hot wire control. It doesn't actually affect the voltage. The voltage is set in here is dependent on what you're using. So yeah, if you're using 12 volt or 24 volt, all it will do is scale this display accordingly to the voltage you're delivering. So all you need to do is just move the slider to wherever the voltage is going to, whatever your voltage setting is. So that's one thing I've done as well. You may also notice up here, we've got COM now only and no IP. Now, I wasn't really sure why the IP setting was in there to start with, because the firmware that we're using won't support a connection via IP. So it can only use the USB connection. So I've removed that as well to tidy the code up a bit. And what you also notice down here as well, I've got enable keyboard macros actually here in the jogging. So that's one way to get over this mouse clicking going too much. And you can see we've got the keys there. We've got the checkbox there as well, so you can enable it from either side. So as you can see, it looks slightly different. And the other thing we've got down at the bottom as well, I've also added the feed rate in at the bottom. not that you can change it or do anything, but it's just more for information purposes really. So it was just quite easy to add it in. So while I was tidying the code up, I added it in there. So so this job is quite long. Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll come back in a minute when the actual job is nearly finished. So guys, you can see we're nearly coming to the end. I think what I'll do is I'll move my mush out of the way. There we go. And what you can see now, it's coming up towards the end. And what you should see now is the buffer will start to empty. There it is, it's going down now. And it should come right to the end. And it's sent all the G code. And then the cut line is finished right at the end now. So I think what it's going to do now, yeah, it's coming down. This is doing a cut on the trailing edge. So this was this actual piece of G code was developed in DevWing Phone 2. So there we go. So as you can see there, the code's been sent, but there's still a tiny bit in the buffer, and you can actually see the buffer. You switch it on there. These numbers here in the buffer there, when that gets to 35, it'll actually finish. So that actually means the space in the buffer, and so that's the size of the buffer in the GRBL software. So you can see we've finished now, and the buffer's saying 35. So just take the verbose off. We don't need it on. So that's basically the update. And one of the things I'm trying to do this year is trying to keep the videos a bit shorter as well. I know in the past the videos have been quite long, but so hopefully this video is not too long. And if we have a look at, I've now put the version number up at the top there, and if we do about, and what I've done is I've added a little bit more to the help as well. So we've got video tutorials, configuration guide, and G code generators. So that's basically just links to the website. So, and then on the about page, we've just got, and I've taken a lot of this other information off as well. You know, it was just cluttering the code really. You know, there was no need for it really. So, and on the help there, if you go to configuration guide and video tutorials, that just takes you to YouTube and the website. So if you just pull it down to the, there we are. So it just goes into the page there on how to generate the G code. So, so that's basically it for the update, guys. So you should be able to install it without any issues alongside the original software, version 4. And I'd probably advise you to start with just to keep it like that until you're happy with it and before you make any changes. And you can just make sure you've got all the same settings. The settings on the GRBL controller, the settings on the Arduino controller are stored in the EEPROM, so it will pull all them settings. The only thing that possibly might not swap over if you've changed any of these settings here, like the feed increments and that. So as well to keep your original version going there, so you can just copy the settings across, and then depending whether you're using a ramps board or an MKS board, you can just select the voltage there. So guys, I nearly forgot to show you some test cuts of this new software. I have been running it a little bit, and I've designed a full swept wing. There's quite a few of these around on the internet, and they're quite popular, so I thought I'd like to have a go at doing one myself as well. So I designed it up, and then I've run it on the new software, and it seems to work really well. So I've not found any issues with it. So what I'll do is I'll show you some of the cuts we made with it, and see what you think to it. So I'll do a bit of a voiceover when you see them as well. So let's have a look at them. So here we are cutting the wing cords for this forward swept wing design that you'll see in a minute. And as you can see, the draw slides are quite extended. And actually for this design, not for this actual part, but I had to put longer draw slides in and also longer threaded rods It hasn't got the longer threaded rods in at the moment, but that's the beauty of this design, that you can extend it. Now, if you just watch closely, you might see something happen in a minute on the, there we go, the actual fishing wire broke. I've used it quite a bit and I think it's just worn away, so that was a bit of a bummer. So I had to go and make the second wing again. But we'll just have a look at the first core that came out, and this is all running on this latest software. The firmware hasn't changed; it's exactly the same. So it's only the software, the Windows controller software, that's changed. So as you can see, that's looking quite good there. Looks a little bit more burnt down towards the tip end, but you know, when you're doing tapered wings and that, it's a bit of a job to get them absolutely perfect. So, but that won't prove any problem. And you can see here the square rods going in absolutely perfect. So we'll see a picture in a minute of the full design. Yeah, and a bit of a closer look for you there. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. And here's the full design. It looks similar to some of the other designs you see on the internet, but I've put my own take on this. So hopefully when I get around to getting it finished, we'll have some more videos showing you how to work. So that's the new software actually working, guys. So and you can see it works really well. So in this last section, guys, what we'll do, we'll have a look at the updates I've made to the foam cutter, the website, and then we'll talk a little bit about more about the Fusion 360 4-axis. So we'll have a look at the website first of all. So I'll just switch it over. The main thing that you're probably going to notice is on the website, the part list. It's the part list that's been the biggest change, really. I've removed all the links, and the reason for that is the links were becoming very time consuming to keep updated, and quite often, if that particular link had gone dead, they were occasionally linking you to the wrong parts. And I've had one or two guys that have got versions of the MKS board that are a little bit more difficult to use, so because they were linked to a different version. So what I suggest you do now is, you know, if you are thinking of building a foam cutter and you've got your list of parts together, you're not quite sure, just drop me an email with your list in and I'll have a look for you and I'll tell you whether they're okay or not. So I think that's a much better way of doing it rather than, you know, you ending up with the wrong part. And keeping this list up to date was very time consuming as well. You know, the links were going out of date, I was having to update them, and they were Amazon affiliate links that were in the UK and US, and it was just, you know, I thought I've got better things to do with my time than keep these links up to date. But as you can see, on the back of the foam cutter here, I've put a linear rail and with a tooth belt and a weight. So to tension the wire now, I'm using a pulley and weight system. So let's get we've got a front picture, you might be able to see it a little bit better as well. So as you can see there, the tooth belt comes over, and there's a skateboard bearing in that where it comes over, and then this fishing wire is rated about 30 pounds, and then that connects to the actual hot wire down here. Now the reason for this is generally most of the time when you're using the foam cutter and you're not moving the carriages too differently from one another, there isn't a lot of tension between the carriages. But when you start to do some big movements and which have got big difference in angles, then there's quite a lot of movement. And so I found that was a problem on my own foam cutter as well, especially when you're doing fuselages where you've got some big angles and you have to have the carriages quite close together. So I've run a few test cuts on this, and it seemed to work okay at the moment. So I'll let you know how that goes in a future video. And the other thing I'm doing as well, what I've done as well is I'm adding some drag chain. What I've been finding as well, the simple wiring I set up originally, when you start doing bigger cuts and that, it start to snag up a little bit, and I have to constantly keep watch on it. So what I'm going to do is use drag chain, and as you can see here, there's some Ethernet cable. So I'm going to rewire it using Ethernet cable. Now the gauge of the Ethernet cable is exactly the same as the stepper motors. And what I'm going to be doing, because there's 8 wires in here, I'm going to be pairing them up together. So quite a few guys do this on CNC machines. What you'll find generally is that they generally only take about 70% of the maximum current you've set anyway. So I use this on my own foam cutter, which had more powerful motors, and it worked perfectly. So that's the other update I'm going to be doing. So I'll just give you a little quick overview of this. I won't go into too much detail and try and keep the videos short as possible. But as I said, if I find it works okay, I'll do a more in-depth video just on this. So basically what I wanted to do was to see whether I could just generate the G-code for a simple fuselage. So I managed to find this image, which was quite a good image of a Piper Cub. So you may have seen, guys, is I've got a flight test bushwhacker. There's some video on the channel. I'll put your link into that. And I've had it a few years. It flies really well, but it's starting to look a bit beat up now. And I'm not the biggest fan of this foam board that a lot of the guys use in the States. It doesn't seem very durable. And so what I thought I'd do is I'd have a go and see if I can make the fuselage out of foam, but using Fusion 360 to generate the G-code. And so basically what I've done is I created a sketch. Now the sketch looks a bit small at the moment because I've since scaled it from this for some testing. If you know anything about Fusion 360, you do design and then you go into the manufacture. Normally Fusion 360 will only, as you can see here, we've got X, Y and Z, or Z if you're in the States. And what I've done is basically all I want is the X and Y just copying over to the U and Z. And if you know anything about Fusion 360, it uses something called post processors, and they're in. So if you go to action, if you go to post process, you get a list of processors that are built in. I mean, there's hundreds of them, but you can have your own versions as well. So if I go into personal posts, I've got one there for foam cutter. I'll just open the config. Takes a bit to open, and this is basically some JavaScript. So I won't go too much into it here, but so what I've done, I've just gone into it and modified it to copy the X and Y to the U and Z axis, and then when you run it, now you have to think like a hot wire. Basically, you have to think where the wire is going to start from and how it's going to work. So if we just go into the simulation. Going to go. Oh, there we go. So this is the path that the hot wire would take. And so I have done some tests on it and got some code out of it. Let me see if I can just show you some code. There we go. That's the. So as you can see there, it's generated the code, and if we just run the foam cutter, it looks like it's going to do it okay. But as you can see, it's only parallel cuts. So so hopefully, if it's okay, I'll do a video on how to install the post processor and how to run it, because it's not quite straightforward. It's not as easy as the DevFuzz foam, and I'm going to be doing another project later this year with DevFuzz foam. You might have seen my failed T45 GOS fork, so I'm intending to redo that this year and try and get some success with it. So that's about it basically, guys. Hope that's been useful to you. Keep a lookout for the next video, which may be on this Fusion 360 stuff if that works out okay. And I'll catch you in the next video. And once again, thanks very much for all your subscriptions. Do really appreciate it. See you later.